Good morning, everyone. My name is Rik Van Bruggen from Neo4j, and yeah, this is a great morning to be presenting to you guys. And it's a topic that I'm sure you will understand is quite dear to my heart. It's about how do we license Neo4j and how do we make sure that we balance the different forces at hand here between the open source aspects of Neo4j and the commercial aspects of Neo4j. Well, we'll go into that a little bit more, right? So first of all, I'll give you a little bit of an agenda. I'll give you a little bit of background behind the company and the platform. Give you a little bit of an update on what's going on with the latest releases of Neo4j, and then we'll break down the different licensing options that you have for Neo4j, and hopefully that will be a useful conversation, and you can ask any questions that you would have after that. Right, so just so you know here, Neo4j, I guess it's kind of a weird name, and it's kind of a weird name because it's been around for such a long time. We've been, leading this graph industry for a very long time, and we kind of were at its heart, early 2000s when our founders basically wanted to scratch an itch that they had with regards to relational databases. They were software engineers in Malmö, Sweden, and they were building a very complicated application, content management application, and facing some really big issues with that. And started to address those issues by building software and by doing something different. By now, we've built quite a cool company. I've been here 6 years, and I can tell you that it's grown quite a bit since then. We're about 220 employees these days, and we have offices all around the world. We have a solid venture capital background and an extremely large community supporting our ecosystem. When you look at some of the logos here on the right-hand side of this slide, it's just super impressive, both in terms of customers and in terms of partners. We really have a very, very powerful ecosystem that we've built here. And we've been building that for quite some time, right? I mean, when I say early 2000s, that's when the earliest open source capabilities of Neo4j were conceived. But at that time, it really was just a library on top of Postgres, right? So it was a Java library on top of a relational database that provided a network engine for objects, a Neo, right? And it was a very, very different product, I would say. And it wasn't until like the 2010 or thereabouts that our funds really started to accelerate and attract venture capital to accelerate that growth, and where we've really seen the NoSQL wave propel us into a much, much faster adoption. And I would say that today, Neo4j really is a pioneering, but also a leading graph technology vendor that has, its foot in many different parts of this ecosystem. We're a sizable player, I can say that at least. And this is a market that is really accelerating. There's a lot of interest pouring into it, and a lot of very interesting activities. Not in the least when you look at some of the very, very notable case studies that we have out there, right? I mean, some of these, and this is just a very, very small snapshot, but these things are kind of changing the world. They are changing the way that humans live on this planet, deal with international political and financial structures, and deal with their phones and their IT equipment, right? I'm sure everyone's heard about the Panama Papers. You may not have heard of Project Orion, which is NASA's project to put humans on Mars. And you may not have heard yet about eBay's shopbot technology, which is amazing in many different ways, and how it facilitates a number of different applications. This is really impactful, right? This is stuff that we couldn't do before, and that is now within the reach of every software developer. And that's being recognized. That's being recognized by lots of different people, also the analysts. But I guess it's mostly also recognized by, people that use Neo4j, that use it every day, that download it, that come to events, that do the trainings, that do the meetups. It's amazing every single time I go in front of a meetup group somewhere where we see there's just a room full of people that are building fascinating stuff with Neo4j out there. So it's really, really great. And it's also great because it's very much an evolving story, right? There's a lot of things that are being done with Neo4j, that are being implemented with Neo4j, and we've always kind of thought of this as a set of prime use cases where we thought that graph technology would be first adopted, right? And these are some of those prime use cases, like real-time recommendation systems, fraud detection system, which is kind of similar to recommendations. I recommend that you go to jail, right? And then you have network and IT operations, used by telecom operators and large IT shops, master data management used by lots of regulatory use cases, GDPR as a very recent example, for example, but also knowledge graphs where people are trying to apply real or artificial intelligence to infer new kinds of knowledge and expand knowledge in an organization or in a particular domain, and then also the identity and access management use cases. And I'm not kidding when I say that we have very, very powerful references and big name accounts for each and every one of these. But that's kind of expanding. This is really these sweet spot use cases that you see here are getting bigger and bigger. We're handling more and more complex real-time workloads for large and small organizations. There's a lot of stuff happening with Neo4j. The one on the right-hand side here, the package routing example, is a very powerful one because we implemented a package routing application for a large postal service a couple of years ago, and that was because they knew that if they didn't do anything about this, basically the routing engine that they were using up till then was going to basically not survive Christmas, right? The Christmas peak in package routing was going to kill them, basically. And in that way, we have this running joke within Neo4j saying that we saved Christmas, right? But really enterprise critical, really big graph workloads being implemented on Neo4j, and that's kind of leading us to a strategy and an implementation where we have more than just the native graph database that we want to be offering to the market here. We're not just talking about Neo4j, this wonderful new graph database, right? But we also want to provide a platform that allows people to build applications much more quickly, that allows them to be more productive, that allows them to reap value from their graph implementations much more quickly, because the graph platform is going to offer you a number of different benefits, right? Not just a fast query engine kind of thing, but also it's really, really powerful when it comes to transactional processes, analytical processes. You will see performance characteristics that are very different from your traditional relational systems. You will see agility, right? You will be able to modify graph models as you learn more about your domain. Just in the way that we want to develop software these days as well, right? So solving one problem at a time and iterating over a domain to learn more about it. We've just released a number of tools around discovery and visualization, or actually we haven't released it yet. It's going to be released early July. That's Neo4j Bloom. You'll hear more about that in a different webinar. And then we also see a lot of developer productivity and hardware efficiency gains with the Graph platform. Sorry about that, Graph platform. It's kind of being enabled by Neo4j 3.4. If you haven't looked at that yet, then I would highly recommend that you do. It's our latest and greatest Neo4j release. It's the foundation for all of these beautiful things that I just talked to you about. And there's some really cool and easy ways to get to know some of these new features. For example, you can just download it from the website and then open up your browser, your Neo4j browser, and start, accessing this particular guide here. You'll get the links to these things in the follow-up email that you'll get from Angelica later on, right? But that allows you to explore Neo4j 3.4, which, I think you will find is the most scalable, the most performant, the most secure, the most feature-rich, and the most easy to operate and administer version of Neo4j that we've ever built. And we're really proud of it. It's a great piece of kit. Now, that's all very fine. That was kind of the introduction to the actual topic of this webinar. Because we wanted to talk a little bit about, how we license Neo4j, right? How do we provide that to the market? How do we provide that to our users? And it's kind of a tricky subject, right? Because I'm full aware of the fact that there have been a lot of questions about that on different fora. There's been different discussions about it, and that's because we are a typical I would say commercial open source vendor, right? And we are very proud of that, actually. We're very proud of being a commercial open source vendor because we believe in all of those different things, right? And we've been doing it successfully. We've got the track record to prove that, in more than a decade now, much longer than 2010 actually, we've been successful at finding the balance between the open source capabilities that we provide with Neo4j and the commercial implementation that we provide with Neo4j. And if you're ever wondering, it's not an easy balance to find, right? Because on the right-hand side, we really love open source, and I think if you talk to anyone that works on Neo4j or works for Neo4j, the company, you will find that all of us believe in the open source model. It's a very powerful and transformative way of developing software. And I've been working for Neo4j for 6 years, and it's eye-opening. It's fantastic, right? We really love it, and we really are passionate about it, and we want to support it. But at the same time, on the left-hand side, you see that we are a commercial company, right? We are not a charity organization. We live off revenue. We pride ourselves in building a sustainable company that has a revenue model, because you know what, the streets are littered with open source projects that don't have a revenue model and that die a slow and painful death, right? So we don't want to be that organization. We don't want to be that open source project. So we are building a business around Neo4j that should stand the test of time. That's why we've built 2 editions of the Neo4j product, right? The one that you probably are most familiar with is what we call the Community Edition, right? And by God, that's a great product. It's a fantastic piece of software. It has its warts, as you will no doubt find out if you start using it, but it's a great product. And on top of that, it has a great supportive community that is extremely valuable to all of us, right? The Community Edition is a free product, right? Free as in beer, as in free beer, but also free as in speech. It's licensed according to the GPL v3, right? And it's really a very capable product for I would say many different use cases. On top of that, we provide this 2nd edition of Neo4j, which is the Enterprise Edition, right? And I'm hoping to show you a little bit later on that this is an even greater product, right? This is the the best product that we have out there, right? It's got all the features, right? It has an extensive list of what I would think are attractive features for many different audiences, but it also comes with a very, very different support model, right? And it also comes with commercial, as in non-open source licensing capability. Right, that commercial licensing capability is payable in many cases, right? And that's how we build our sustainable revenue model. That's how we keep the gears turning. But there's quite a few exceptions to the commercial aspects or to the payable aspects, which I'm hoping to explain to you. Now, the way to think about these two editions, I guess, is you will see that the community edition is a very, very capable product for what I would say is an individual developer, right? Or a small hobby project. You will get a very, very long way with Neo4j Community Edition if that's what you're doing. If you're an individual that's building a piece of software, or you just want to host something small as a hobby project, Neo4j Community Edition will take you there, right? Enterprise Edition is what the name says, right? It's targeted towards enterprises who are developing and deploying critical applications, right? And I'm hoping you see, that's a different kind of objective, right? That's a different type of capability that we're building, and you will see that it has very, very different characteristics as a consequence, right? So the community edition, you will get that online. You can download it for free. It's a fully open sourced, and it's a great source of adoption for us. People getting started with Neo4j. It's a great community of like-minded people that want to help each other out and assist and provide feedback. I would also say that it's a great source of innovation. Many of the best ideas that we have for Neo4j come by interacting with and working with our community contributors, right? Same thing for integration, lots of different integration ideas. When we build out this platform that has all of these different connectors into lots of different systems, and the community is actually where many of these proof of concepts or initial capabilities come from. And that's a great asset to all of us, right? And to be honest, we believe in this. We really support this 200%, and we make a continued investment into this by providing staff, by providing people, and lots of software code to the community technology in open fora, right? So this is where you can access all of these different URLs that you have here on this little slide that you'll get also tomorrow. You can get a lot of support for Neo4j Community Edition on these open fora, whether it's Stack Overflow or the Google group or the knowledge base or the Slack channel, which is probably the more popular one these days. This is where you can turn to for support. And I think most people will confirm that it's a great source of support. Right? Now, that's the community edition. Great product. Everything you want as an individual developer or a hobby project developer. But the enterprise edition adds a lot more. And I guess when I try to think about this, and when I try to summarize how the enterprise edition is different from the community edition, I guess there's three parts to it, right? There's three parts. The first part is the feature set, right? The second part is the support delivery for the enterprise edition, and the third part is the license that you get with the enterprise edition. Right. So let's go through that a little bit. The enterprise edition, in terms of features, is quite different. I mean, I said before, the community edition is a great product, and it'll take the individual developer a very long way. But as you can see from, for example, this slide here, the database features of the enterprise edition are just quite different. There's a lot more performance-related capabilities, a lot more security-related capabilities here. There's a lot more different types of features. I actually realized that I've made a little bit of an error on this slide here, but I'll correct that when I distribute it. But the database has some additional capabilities and speed capabilities, but also operational capabilities that will be quite different. Right? So the features in terms of databases are quite different. In terms of architecture, it's actually quite different as well. For example, and I think this is probably the thing that people are quite aware of, the Enterprise Edition is the version of Neo4j that will scale out, right? That will scale out because of its clustering and its high availability capabilities, right? But also that will allow you to implement much more sophisticated support security capabilities. Right? So there's a lot going into that. There's a lot of architectural features that are different for the Enterprise Edition as compared to the Community Edition. And mind you, as an individual developer, which is the target group for the Community Edition, right? You might not care about that, but if you're an enterprise, right, you're probably going to care about these architectural differences. And also, for example, to highlight a couple of platform features that are different, right? Again, same story, right? The Community Edition is very, very capable, but the Enterprise Edition does a better job at it, right? Like, for example, when it comes to graph size, Community Edition will hold a lot of data. The Enterprise Edition will allow you to store even more data, right? So there's a bunch of features that are quite different here, right? And that's kind of the first main difference between the Community Edition and the Enterprise Edition, right? Second big difference between both editions is, I guess, the way we support it, right? I talked to you earlier about our investment and our continued commitment to provide open fora support for the Community Edition, right? Which we will do and we will continue to do. There's no doubt about that, right? But the Enterprise Edition will provide you, commercial support, right? It'll give you service level agreements, right? Where we will commit to answering your questions within a certain time frame, right? And that's very different, right? If you're looking for an answer on Stack Overflow, or you can basically say, hey, Neo4j, got this question, get back to me within 24 hours, that's a very different thing, right? So we have remote support capabilities, right? We have it's not a big call center, but we do have a call center that deals with product questions. Most of that work is actually being done by a ticketing system that's completely automated and auditable. You're talking to prime software engineers. We're not don't have to go through layers and layers of call center agents. You're going to talk to prime engineers, and actually the backend support is being done by our product engineers, the people that actually develop the product, right? And the other component here is the fact that for Neo4j Enterprise, we provide consulting support. We go on site and we make your project successful. We make sure that the implementation that you have of Neo4j, it stands up to the test, and it will deliver the value that you're looking for. Right. So that's the second component, the way we support Neo4j, right? It's not just the features, it's also the way we support it, right? And then the third component is how we license Neo4j. The Enterprise Edition always has a commercial license, right? Which is different from the open source license that the Community Edition has. A commercial license means that you're not going to be bound by the rights and obligations of the GPLv3, but you're going to get a Neo4j commercial license agreement that has different parameters, that has different rights and obligations, right? Some of those obligations will be or might be that you have to pay for something, right? But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. We provide Neo4j Enterprise Edition for free to quite a few people, right? We really do. Like for example, when you download Neo4j Desktop, which is like the management environment around Neo4j, then you actually get a free version, a developer license to the Enterprise Edition. Yes, it does require you to register with us so that we know who you are and where the software lives, but you can use it for free. We don't ask you to pay anything, right? Same thing when you're an academic or a student, right? And you want to use, the best and most capable Neo4j version for your research or for your academic work, right? You can apply for an educational license, right? We don't charge you anything for that. You can just use the best and bravest edition of Neo4j for free. And then the third freely available version of Neo4j Enterprise is available to small enterprises, to small startups, right? Right. When you're just starting out and you're low on cash and you're working from your garage and all those wonderful things that come with a early stage startup, we're not going to charge you money. We've been a startup. We know how that feels, and we're going to give you our best and bravest product for free, right? So Neo4j Enterprise is available for free for a bunch of different audiences. Then, of course, as I told you earlier, we do need to keep the gears turning on Neo4j, and we are going to ask a number of people to pay for Neo4j licenses. Specifically, either when you're requiring that support or when you're building applications that are really clearly of business value to you, right? So when you're a startup, right, I told you earlier on the left-hand side here, and you're working from your garage and you're in the early stages and you don't have any cash, we're not going to ask you money. But a little bit later in your life cycle, when you do get more cash, when you do get, like for example, some VC funding or some traction, then at that point, it's fair for us to ask you for at least some license revenue so that we can continue building the platform for you, right? So there are startups around, and there's criteria for that on our website where we will charge them a limited fee. And the bulk of our enterprise edition payable customers are going to have a commercial subscription with us. We're talking about the larger enterprises here. We're talking about organizations that have global presence or a big footprint, and then we're going to have a conversation about the value that you will derive from Neo4j. And we do have a kind of like a proxy to measure the value, right? We're going to talk about the number of servers, the number of cores, the RAM in those servers, and the duration of the subscription agreement, right? And that's going to be kind of like the starting point for a pricing conversation. We do want to be flexible with our clients, right? So we do pride ourselves in really listening to clients and making sure that we have the right metrics in place for those paid commercial subscriptions, and work with the client to make sure that they get the best possible deal here. Right, so I told you a little bit about the startup licenses already. Please take a look at our website as well. We've got these early stage startups that can use Neo4j Enterprise Edition for free. And then we've got the traction startups, as we call them, right? A little bit more mature startups that can actually use Neo4j for a very limited investment fee, right? So that's something to take a look at. There's a lot of other questions that we could go into, and I would recommend that you go to neo4j.com/licensing to see some of these frequently asked questions, right? Do you need to pay for Neo4j Enterprise? No, not always, absolutely not. What's the best option for startups? We have a fantastic startup program, right? I'm an educator that wants to use Neo4j. Can I use it for free? Yes, you can. Just let us know, apply for the educational license. Same thing for the students, right? I'm building a personal hobby project. Maybe we should use community, but if you actually want more than just the community edition and want to use the additional features, then you can actually be an early stage startup, right? I'd like to evaluate Neo4j. We have evaluation licenses that people can use for a limited period of time to get acquainted and prove the value of Neo4j. I'm going to skip the next one, and then I'm using a Apache licensed driver. That's fine, but you still have to you still have to comply with the licenses behind that, of course. And you can best compare our community edition license to what I think has been used by companies like MySQL in the past. It's quite a good and familiar model, I guess. If, however, you are shipping Neo4j as part of your software solution, which is the part that's in bold on this slide here, then you really need to have a chat with us, because we have specific ways of doing that. We have you can't do that with the community edition, right? That's not allowed, but we can give you the license to embed our software into your software by granting you an OEM license, which is something that we'll have to commercially discuss. So that's kind of it. Those are your licensing options right now. Happy to take any additional questions if those would be around, and I'm hoping that this was a useful starting point, and I look forward to discussing more.